Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Joined alongside me is Craig Bowers. We are here, Creighton preview. We're going to be sprinkling in some team previews this year as Purdue goes, follows up their national championship run last year and is back to being a pretty good team, a very good team, a great team. We're going to figure out all of that this year. That's going to start with the Creighton exhibition, which is 8 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday. You can view it online at gocreighton.com. It is a $10 cost, but it is all going to charity as well. So $10, watch Purdue basketball play a very good exhibition game. Remember last year, Purdue lost to Arkansas in the exhibition. So the result may not mean all that much, right? We don't know how much Purdue is prepping for this or not, but there's still going to be things that we're going to be looking for, things that we can kind of take away or start to take away from this game. So we're going to start and just get straight into it with talking a bit about Creighton. They lose Trey Alexander. They lose Baylor Shireman from last year. Obviously, a very good team last year, projected to be, once again, a very, very good team, probably top 3 in the Big East. I think they're number 12 in KenPom right now. Like, Creighton's going to be good. And just kind of going through a couple of their key guys. Ryan Kalkbrenner is the main guy, I think, that leads this team. He's going to be the anchor defensively. And we'll talk a bit about that in a bit because I want to bring that back up. Pop Isaacs transfers from Texas Tech. Stephen Ashworth, he returns back. He was one of their main rotation guys last year. Bringing in a couple highly ranked freshmen. I know we're not deep diving Creighton, but I guess just from specifically Creighton, kind of what stands out to you, things that just notice or you'll be looking for.
Well, I mean, first of all, I thought, in my head, I was like, well, Kalkbrenner's coming back. So we lost our big man. They got their big man back. And then when you really start diving into it, they return less starts. They return less points. They return less minutes because of those other two guys that they lost to the NBA. But I think it presents some interesting things. Obviously, Kalkbrenner, probably going to be an All-American. We would expect him to be an All-American this year at center. So I think right away you look at that and you think, all right, we're down our 7'4", 2-time National Player of the Year. We're going to go into an exhibition game against a center that is likely to be an All-American. That's a 7-footer. Some of the questions about can Purdue play small if Painter decides to run with that lineup a little bit in this game to see if they can. And then can Wilberg and Daniel Jacobson stand up against other 7-footers that are high-quality 7-footers in college basketball? We're going to see some of those answers. And we kind of talked about this in the last show, but don't really think that exhibition games give you a great feel overall for the team because of the way a coach does rotation and is trying out lineups. Do they prep? Do they not prep? All that type of thing. But you can see just some individual skill, right? And physicality from players. So I think you're going to get a feel if TKR is at the 5, can he hold up against a quality 7-footer? And then if the freshman Daniel Jacobson or Wilberg are in there, how do they stack up against a high-quality 7-footer?
Yeah, and that's going to be very interesting. The starting 5 has obviously been a big question. We texted offline, and I think we were both in agreement. We wouldn't be shocked if the starting 5 we see against Creighton is not the starting 5 we see day one. This is going to be kind of a mix match of lineups and just figuring things out for Purdue. But yeah, with Creighton specifically, obviously it starts with Kalkbrenner and what he does and how Purdue matches up there. He's going to play a very, very deep drop coverage. He makes it very hard for teams to shoot at the rim. Teams just don't take that many shots at the rim, and when they do against Creighton, they don't have much success. So that'll be something to look for offensively. Ashworth is going to be a guy that he's a combo guard, but can be run point guard. I mean, he averaged 4.2 assists per game last year, can shoot the ball really well. He is 6'1", so defensively, I think matches up well. Pop Isaacs transferred from Texas Tech, who we briefly mentioned, probably their best perimeter scorer coming into this year. He has a little bit more juice to him, ability to get downhill. Not the best shooter from last year, but you still have to respect it to a degree. The other one that is interesting is Mason Miller, their forward. Just he's not like he's close. He's like Mason Gillis was to Purdue last year. Not like the craziest high volume minutes or shooting, but shot 45% from 3, 6 points, 3 rebounds. Like he just kind of can do a little bit of everything. So it'll be interesting to see how Purdue kind of matches up there. We do want to keep this one a little bit more Purdue centric than maybe in the season, just because Purdue also like is going to keep it more Purdue centric than scouting Creighton themselves. Before we get into Purdue, though, is there anything else that stands out? Like, this is a team that I guess I have one more thing that stands out before I do throw it to you. This is a team that at times will run a ton of off-ball movement, like a lot of pin downs, things like that. They did it for guys that are no longer there, so we'll see how that kind of works. But Purdue's off-ball defense could be tested just as much as their on-ball defense. Now I'll throw it to you. Do you have anything else with Creighton?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just always interested. It seems like Creighton has a lead guard that's really active, and even though they run a lot of action, I think of Nembhard, I think of Trey Alexander, that does a lot to create for everybody else, and they tend to put up a ton of threes, and then they have that 7-footer down low. So I'm interested to see how Pop Isaacs fits into that role. Like you said, not a very good 3-point shooter, but he's a high volume shooter. And I think he's going to try to break defenses down. So I'm really interested to see how we defend him. I know we're going to talk about a guy on Purdue that we think might likely get that matchup or see that matchup for part of the game that might give us a really cool look at that early on. But I think the other thing, just as I was reading through this team, Jackson Andrew is Doug McDermott's highest recruit that he's ever landed in program history as a freshman. And I think he's like 6'10", 6'11".
Yeah, 6'9",
No,
6'10".
6'10", yeah. Forward. So be interesting to see him in the scrimmage and how much he plays, how much he contributes for them, and then how we match up against him. Because if he's out there with Kalkbrenner, then what does Painter do lineup-wise? So that'll be interesting to me.
Yep, it definitely will be. I meant to mention Jackson McAndrew, but appreciate you doing that. Let's jump to the Purdue side. I'll throw it to you first, and I'm going to also put out the caveat for both of us that like it is an exhibition. We are probably neither of us are going to really overreact, but just things that we're going to take note of. What is the like main thing you're going to be looking for in this game, or just interested to see?
I mean, out of the gate, I'm going to be interested to see what he throws out there for a starting lineup. And like you said, that doesn't necessarily mean that'll be the starting lineup day one on November 4th for Purdue. But I also don't think Painter's like trying to pull any punches and hide what the starting lineup's going to be. It's just, I don't know that they know yet. And we've heard several different reports over the last few weeks, last few months that have made us think that might have changed multiple times, and it may change again before starting day. But I'm interested to see that. And I think we're both of the assumption that it's probably going to be a true center next to TKR at this point from what we've heard. But I want to see, is that how he's going to start out, how he plans to play this year, the majority of the time?
Yeah. And I think that's going to be everybody's probably biggest question. And I assume there's going to be a lot of overreaction to it, regardless of who it is. Whether it be Jacobson or Berg, or they go small, or Jakari Harris starts, or whatever they do. I think for me, it is going to be like okay, cool. That's like, if they had to start one, that's who it is right now, but it's not like and I think let's go to Jakari, because I know we want to talk about him for a bit in a second too. Like, if Jakari starts over Colvin, right? It's not for us, or I'll speak for me. I think this is also for you. It isn't a red flag of like, oh wow, Colvin isn't good. It's like, wow, Jakari just might be what this team needs for the starting lineup, specifically with the defensive end. And so there's things like that where it's just like, it's still, I don't want to overreact to that. But also we're going to finally get to actually see, which is cool, and not just speculate.
Yeah.
I'm just excited about that. Real hoops in college basketball again. So briefly, we want to talk about Jakari. We mentioned Pop Isaacs earlier. He's going to be probably their lead perimeter scorer. Whether Jakari starts or not, we assume he's probably going to get that matchup.
Yeah. Yep.
What are you looking for within that matchup then?
From what I've seen a little bit in practice, and what I've seen from clips that were put out, and then from what people were talking about this last Saturday, I know I put a tweet out earlier today. I was just thinking, I can't believe we didn't do this on Hot Takes. I can't believe I didn't have this on Hot Takes. But if Jakari starts, I will not be shocked if he makes the all-defensive team in the Big Ten. I won't be. And I want to see what he can do, just because they say in practice he's picking Braden up full court basically every time. And I want to see what he can do to affect and impact basically the point of attack, whoever's bringing the ball up, to disrupt things, because we funneled everything to Zach the last few years. And Lance was a good perimeter defender, but not like a true, I guess, disruptor in my mind when I think about like a Chris Kramer or somebody like that that could do that, or an Aaron Kraft from Ohio State. And I think we may need that this year a little bit more. And I'm really interested to see if Jakari can just put the clamps on somebody like him, and not only make it hard for him to score, but make it hard for Creighton to initiate their offense at all.
Yeah, and I don't got much to add on top of that. Like, I agree with everything you said there. I'm excited to see it. The all big, I mean, it would be a hot take, him making the all Big Ten defense team, just because there's 5 guys only that make the team, 18 teams. But I think on that show, I think at that point in time, like, my hot take was Jakari starts at some point, and like, that doesn't feel like that hot of a take at all anymore.
No, it doesn't,
like, at all. But I think for me, aside from the lineups, the biggest thing I am going to be looking for is, what does Braden Smith do? Specifically in, like, we mentioned Kalkbrenner's this elite rim protector. They run a very similar system to what Purdue did with Edey, right? And what they'll probably do with Berg and potentially Jacobson. Very deep drop coverage coming off the screen. And what that forces and opens up is that mid-range pull-up. This is an exhibition and all of that. We can't emphasize that enough. But this is also a spot, like, if Braden's going to be like, no, I am the guy. I am like the Big Ten player of the year. I'm not too worried about the final output. Maybe he has a bad shooting game, whatever. Is he going to consistently take those pull-ups that Creighton's going to give him? Creighton's going to live with the mid-range. Like I said, they're consistently one of the top teams in forcing mid-range shots. And they're not great at defending them because that's by their defensive design. Is Braden, if he plays 30, 35 minutes, right? Let's say he does. Is he going to take 15 to 17 shots? Because I think it could be there. Or is he still going to try to really facilitate for others and incorporate others? And maybe those are the right reads, but that's just the big thing I'm going to look at is, what is the balance for him, knowing that realistically this is a spot where it should be a game that he can get a ton of shots up if he wants, a ton of good shots.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess my assumption is that they will not double TKR or any of the 7-footers if Kalkbrenner's in there defensively.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, there's a piece of me that just wants to see. I mean, UConn did that to us last year, even with Zach, right? Basically just said, we're going to let the center get his and we're going to shut down everybody on the perimeter, but we don't have Zach anymore either. But I mean, Kalkbrenner can do that. He averages 3 blocks a game. He can guard whoever Purdue has down there one-on-one. I don't know that Creighton's perimeter players are considered to be elite defenders like UConn was, but still, just when we have somebody that's playing one-on-one in the post, can our guards and wings create shots is something I'm looking at too. I totally expect them to, but I want to see it happen.
Yeah, no, and I think that's very fair as well. I guess the last thing we should briefly mention, and you sort of did with the post-ups, is like, what exactly is TKR's role and what exactly is his usage? We mentioned, right, we think this could be, Creighton's perimeter defense could lead to a lot of shots for Purdue from the guards, and Miles Colvin and Fletch and Heidi and Harris and CJ Cox, right? Everybody. But what does it look like for TKR? If this is a game where we think a true 5 might start, that means that, like, he's going to have the 4s on him. And I think this is a point that because I've been an advocate for the 5-out or the 4-out lineup with TKR at the 5. I think I at times overlook that, like, TKR is really, really good against 4s, that, like, he can just kind of bully at times. And what does that look like, assuming that he is at the 4? I'm trying to pull up. Yeah, Mason Miller, he's listed, if he's their starting 4-man, which he was last year, he was listed at 6'9", 190 pounds. And so if he's on TKR, like, do they double and go out of their system? Or is TKR, like, is this a game where Smith and TKR combined for 30 shot attempts? That feels like probably a lot, but, like, if they leave TKR in single coverage and they leave Braden Smith for pull-ups, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities.
No, I'd agree. And then I'm interested in that rotation behind that. If I don't think it's a leap for me and you, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't think it's a leap for us to assume at this point that the starting lineup is Smith, likely Jakari, Lawyer, TKR, and one of the 7-footers is what it is looking like. So then what's that rotation behind that like is what I'm really interested in, because it sounds like, I mean, Miles and Colvin are going to get their minute, or I'm sorry, Miles and Cam are going to get their minutes, and they're going to get significant minutes. Painter has said multiple times that Fletcher benefits from having a secondary ball handler. I know you said defense, but I've heard Painter mention the ball handling more
that part
than
too.
anything. With the other guard or wing that's out there. So with Jakari and Braden, you have two really good ball handlers that can handle pressure. So Braden doesn't have to take it all, and Fletch doesn't have to worry about that part of it necessarily. But when Fletch is off the floor, let's say Fletch is off the floor, CJ comes in. CJ's a pretty good ball handler too. So then you got CJ, you got Braden, or CJ and Jakari. If Braden's sitting down, then you can have Miles in that 3 spot, and you still have that mesh like he kind of wants the way he's talking. And it sounds like Cam's probably going to be backing up TKR at the 4. And then we have a stretch 4, and then does TKR slide over the 5 some and we play small, or is it the backup 7-footer that's in? Whoever's starting, who comes in behind that? So I'm really interested just to see. Obviously, he's going to be toying with it all and trying to figure out what it looks like against another team, because they've been banging their heads against each other so far. But I'm really intrigued to see what he does beyond the starting lineup too.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And the 2 other guys that we haven't mentioned is Caleb First and your guy Riley Burgess. And Burgess might be a guy that just can't redshirt because he's that good. And maybe like you can go, if you play Heidi at the 4, that lineup that you said, right? Of CJ, Jakari, Colvin, Heidi at the 4, you put in Burgess or First. That's a really, really athletic lineup. And so do they go to that and just try that out and maybe play a little bit even more up tempo? A lot of good questions, a lot of good, possibilities for Purdue, and we finally get to see them. Do you have anything else for this preview?
Be patient. It's an exhibition game. Be patient through the first month, but be patient in the exhibition game. It's a learning curve. Things are going to be figured out both by players and coaching staff about what works.
Yep. So definitely agree with Craig there. We will be back post-game show right after the Creighton Purdue scrimmage ends. Like I said, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. That would be October 26th. You can view it on gocreighton.com. I think the Purdue socials have it posted elsewhere. $10 to view, but again, going to charity. So if you want to catch us live after the game, where we will break down everything from the exhibition, definitely do that. Like and subscribe. Turn on notifications. You'll get notified as soon as we go live. So appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will catch you all in the next one.